Hello and welcome to the Connected Community Podcast. Today, my guest is Kerri Miller, who is a Feng Shui and energy clearing practitioner. She is an expert in this field. She's written a book about this topic, and we deep dive into what Feng Shui is, what the origin of it is, how we can balance the five elements in our home and what they are, and how the energy flow of our home affects our lives. It affects our finances, it affects our health, it affects our relationships, and tips and tricks to clear energy in our home, to create a beautiful flow of energy, and how to draw in and attract the things that we want in our life. I want to thank you so much for being here today. If you're enjoying these podcasts and gaining value from them, please give us a like, a share, and a subscribe. And please, if you can, drop a comment or leave us a review. It means so much and it helps spread the word of the channel. I want to thank you again for being here today, and I hope you enjoy the episode. Hello, and welcome to the Connected Community Podcast, a place to explore possibility through mindfulness, movement, and self-discovery. Our intention is to deliver insight and inspiration while fostering conversations that are genuine, unfiltered, and deeply human. We hope you will enjoy today's episode. Hi, Kerri. Good morning, and welcome to the Connected Community Podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to talk to you today.
I'm excited for you to be here because I've been looking for a Feng Shui expert for quite a while now. And when you and I spoke and we did our pre-interview, we had the same language.
Yeah.
So I really appreciate how you can simplify a really complex process.
It is a complex process, and there's a lot of layers to it and a lot of different schools of thought on it. But my belief is that it's really a very tangible thing that affects us on a day-to-day level. And that's how I like to present it to people so that they understand how it's affecting them and how they can work with it to make their lives better. So
Yeah. And you're an author of a book around Feng Shui, so you're definitely an expert in this area. So I would love to just start off about what is Feng Shui for people that don't know anything about it, and where did the concept originate from?
yeah, so it originated in the East in China like thousands of years ago. It's been practiced for about 6,000 years, and there's records dating back that far. And it's really about looking at the unseen energy flow around a space and how that influences the way the space feels and how the people in the space feel. And it's also about sort of gently manipulating that energy so that it's more beneficial and so that you and your life or your business and all of those things get the benefit of that vital chi in a good way. So, yeah.
Yeah. And I feel like everybody's had the experience where you've walked into a space and it's pretty minimalistic. It feels like a breath of fresh air. And
Yeah.
then we've walked into a space that's just full of cluttered and the lighting's awful. And it just gives us that feeling inside that's like a little bit unsettling.
Yep.
And so it seems like Feng Shui is about walking into that space and feeling that breath of fresh air.
It absolutely is. And I think that what most people aren't aware of is that your body is reacting to your environment in that way, like either that taking a breath in a good way or tensing up in a bad way. And it's happening whether you're aware of it or not. And so becoming aware of it and shifting it in a good way so that it's always helping you be in a high energy, high vibe space is really, really important and really something that is very empowering.
Yeah. Yeah. What are some of the key concepts around Feng Shui and I know there's different, I'd actually like you to explain because I think there's different sectors of it and that's where it gets confusing for people. So maybe breaking down the different forms of Feng Shui or the different methods, and then what are some key principles across all of them?
Yeah. So there's really classically, if you go back, there's basically two schools of Feng Shui.
Mm-hmm.
One is based off of astrology and time. So that would, and direction. So they use a compass to determine the Feng Shui cures that are going to be put in place.
Mm-hmm.
The other version is land based. So originally they were looking at the way land formations happen. So how rivers and mountains and rock formations affected the way energy flowed, and putting cures in place based on that. So it breaks down into this form school version of Feng Shui or this compass school version of Feng Shui. And they both have very different directions with how they get implemented. But ultimately, the results are very similar because we're shifting the energy and manipulating it in that positive way.
Yeah. Yeah. And so for somebody that doesn't know anything about it, what are some principles across all of them that are similar?
Yeah. So first of all, you want to be in a space that's safe, and you want to be in a place where the energy is beneficial. And so there are different factors that will influence the way that energy is flowing. Sometimes that can be time-based or direction-based, or it could be based on what is physically in your space and how that's redirecting the energy. But ultimately, you can put something in place to redirect the energy or soften the energy so that it's not as harsh or damaging to you, and the way you feel in your house.
Mm-hmm. So what would be an example? Because I'm thinking of one of the things I remember that I've never forgotten is if you're sleeping and there's a beam over your head.
Yeah, yeah.
So how would
Well,
you fix something like that?
yeah, so it's definitely it's about the way the energy is flowing. So when the energy comes into the room and it has to dip around that beam, it is compressing energy down on top of you, which seems kind of subtle and probably not that important. But when you think about that, you're sleeping in your bed a third of your life and you're in a really vulnerable energetic state day after day, hour after hour, minute after minute, that pressure can really create some negative implications on how you're sleeping, how you're feeling, how rested you are, and how you're able to thrive during the day after not being able to sleep so well. So
Mm-hmm.
we want to correct for it. And there are some simple things you can do, like try to move the bed so that you're not under the beam. Or you can try to make the beam energetically disappear. So painting the beam the same color as the rest of the ceiling so
Mm-hmm.
that it tends to kind of melt away and not be as impactful. And you could certainly do things to cover it, or soften the impacts of that dip that's created.
Yeah. And I've had that experience where I've been in an Airbnb or a hotel and I've been under a beam and it felt really heavy and oppressive.
Yeah,
And so I can, I've had that sensation and that feeling. And the same thing is when you walk into a space, you don't want to have to maneuver around a bunch of furniture, right? You want to have
right.
that ease of flow in your home.
Yeah. And if you think about it, like day after day, if you're walking in and bumping your knee on the coffee table that's sharp and in the way, and you're even, the physical damage that it does to your body day after day, but also that just aggravation and frustration that you're adding into your life
Mm-hmm.
every time you pass through that way. We want to remove that and create smoothness and ease throughout all parts of the house and all parts of your life.
Yeah. Yeah. What are some common mistakes that people make when they're setting up their home or their office or their spaces?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is just not being aware of energy flow and knowing that there are some supportive areas of a room and there are some places where you can set yourself up that can be detrimental over time because of the way the energy is flowing at you or impacting you.
Mm-hmm.
So in terms of bedrooms and offices, like your desk arrangement, we often talk about the command position or the power position of the room,
Mm-hmm.
and placing yourself in that position so that when you're sitting at your desk, you're receiving the energy in a good way and there's nothing harsh coming at you. And you don't have that big void of energy flowing behind you that's on a very subtle level, keeping your central nervous system alert and on alert and just kind of using up some of your energy. We can
Mm-hmm.
set you up to eliminate all of those external factors that are really draining you a bit, depleting you a bit, and making your body work harder than it needs to so that you can really have
Mm-hmm.
more energy to focus. And the same thing
Yeah.
happens at night when you're sleeping. We want you to be able to really put your head down on the pillow and allow your nervous system to check out and relax. And there are certain positions in the room where you're able to do that better.
Yeah, I remember when I was studying feng shui, it was saying something that's so logical when you think about it, that when you walk into an office, you want to see the desk. So you don't want to have your desk facing the wall and have people coming in behind you.
Yep.
And then you're always getting surprised, and that can trigger your nervous system too. So you're aware of what's coming into the room and being able to receive it in that way, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it
Mm-hmm.
just like I was in a meeting a couple of weeks ago where I was the speaker and there was, an audience looking at me, and I was set up in the command position, which means I could see the whole room. I could see everybody in front of me. I could see the entrance to the room. And I was joking with the audience members that, if a crazy hungry tiger came running down the halls of
Yeah.
the conference space and into the room, I'd have a lot more time to react and protect myself. And everybody with their backs to the door would really be vulnerable. And it's an exaggeration, of course, but truly that is what your central nervous system is paying attention to. And when you can use the energy around you to make you feel safe and secure,
Mm-hmm.
you call back a lot of your own personal energy, which
Yeah.
allows you to, sleep better, focus better, be happier, all of those things.
Yeah, and that makes me think like when somebody's setting up an office in a meeting, because if you're the speaker, you're the one person. And if there's 200 people in the audience and the room is at the back, and every time somebody's coming in and out of the door, in and out of the door, their focus and attention is
Yep.
either, energetically they're turning around to see what's going on, or it's taking their focus away from you for that moment, but you're not having that issue. So it might be smarter to flip the room in
Yep.
that
Yep.
situation so
Yep.
that the majority of the people aren't distracted by that person coming in and out of the room.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And even if you think about it, like even if you were going into a meeting or a conference or an important place where you really want to be acknowledged and appreciated or seen as worthy, like choosing your spot in the room so that you're in that power spot and getting the focus of everyone is really key. Like it can really give you that energetic advantage. That's one of the things I talk about with feng shui all the time is when you're working with it in the right way, it gives you an energetic advantage that sets you up for more success, more acknowledgement, more appreciation, better health, better sleep, all of those things. So
Mhm.
it really is pretty, powerful to work with on that tangible level.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's the same thing for the bedroom, because when you walk in, you want to be able to see the bed being presented. And so
Yes.
sometimes we've gone into a place where the beds are turned sideways or they're under a window, because I know that's not energetically right to be under a window, or it's kind of in the middle of the room and it doesn't make sense.
Yep. Yeah.
And there's not that warm invitation when you walk into the room that like this is the place where you're going to rest.
And you're going to relax. Yeah, it just automatically like invites you into the space to check out and to come check in even further into the room and get to that place where it is relaxing.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
And what about those places in the home that we all have that collect clutter?
Yeah. It's so interesting because, well, clutter is a very modern day topic in terms of feng shui because it didn't exist,
Yeah.
150 years ago. We just didn't accumulate in the way that we do now.
Yeah.
But now, as this cumulative culture, we really bring in a lot of stuff and it collects the thing to remember is that it affects all of the things that we bring into our home are affecting us on an energetic level because everything is energy and all energy is connected. So even if you're, trying to shove it behind a door and not pay attention to it, it's still really impacting you and you're still consciously or subconsciously aware of it. And so that clutter can really build up and become very loud, even though we're trying to like hide from it or hide it
Mhm.
from us.
Yeah.
So there's that factor with clutter, but there's also, we look at an energy map in Feng Shui, which is called a Bagua map.
Mhm.
And in that map, each part of your home is related to a part of your life. So there is a wealth area of your home, a health area of your home, a career area of your home. And it's always very interesting to notice where clutter is building up within that map because it often is like a physical symbol of the limiting beliefs or the doubts or the fears that we have that are holding us back and blocking us in that part of life. And often, like, removing that clutter is a good way to shift the energy and to start bringing in a new story for that part of your life.
Yeah.
That was a
And
long answer.
well, no, that's a perfect answer. And then I think it reminds me of our conversation where we were doing our pre-interview, and this was the part that I was so fascinated about, was that what our attachment is to not letting go of certain clutter and how to
Yeah.
move past that. Because I think that's a block for a lot of people, is like, yes, I have a basement, it's full of clutter. I have an attic and it's full of clutter, and it's easy to keep throwing things in there, and it drives me crazy, and I know it's there, but there's this attachment and this inability to let go for some reason.
Yeah.
And that's something I think that you do in your work with people that can really move energy that's stuck.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the first thing that I do when I work with people who do have a lot of clutter is to just kind of educate them on what it means in terms of either their Bagua map or just their house in general. So, we look at the house almost like an energy body, and it relates to our body. So if you have a whole bunch of stuff jammed in your attic, that's very equivalent to the stuff that you're jamming into your head. And so, and when people start to see that connection and they're like, oh, that makes sense. Like I have a million thoughts in my head and I can't move forward in my work because of it. And they start to see the relationship between the way they're keeping their stuff and the way it's affecting their life and the way they're showing up. Or if they look at the basement and that's jam packed and they're like, I always feel like I can't move forward in life. Like that's related to the lower part of the body and being able to move forward in life. And so when you have all that stuff jammed in there, it's really holding you back from that forward momentum. So first, that relationship, understanding that relationship of how it's affecting you and even your physical body and how you are showing up in the world, people start to become a little bit more interested in, okay, maybe I should at least handle it differently. And then, there's the individual pieces themselves. Like what does the piece mean to you? Why are you holding on to it? There's a message in that as well. So for example, if you're holding on to something that you don't really love or need right now, but you're worried that if you give it away, you're going to need it later, that's saying a lot about your trust in the universe and any doubts and limiting beliefs that you may have. And kind of coming to terms with that can help you let go of that and be more trusting and trust that things will come back to you.
And I feel like a lot of people can relate to a relative giving us something that was really special to them. And maybe it's a ton of stuff, like a whole set of china dishes. And we don't like it. We're not necessarily drawn to it, but we feel guilt maybe, or there's other feelings about getting rid of it, or maybe it was expensive, or there's a memory attached to it. And so it's not serving us. And then like, how do you advise people to get rid of that stuff?
Yeah, it's so funny because people really take on those items which are given to them as gifts and feel obligated to hold it. And so, first, kind of remembering that most people don't give a gift with the thought that it's going to anchor you or weigh you down or make you feel bad or negatively impact your life. That's not why they're giving it to you. And so if it is something that's in your way or not supporting you or not useful or you don't love it, it is kind of it's like lowering the frequency of your house because and of what you're able to attract, because it's not something that energizes you. And so it is holding you back. And once we can kind of disconnect it from that story that you have to keep it because somebody gave it to you, it's a little bit easier to let it go. And the other thing that I would say on that, energy is a cycle. It's like breathing. You have to breathe out in order to breathe in. And so like letting go of things is really an important part of the receiving process. Like making room so that you can breathe back in again or receive again is really important. And when you're holding on to something, no matter the reason that you're holding on to it, you're almost stopping the flow overall, like for other people as well, because somewhere out there is somebody who might be looking for that item or could need that item or would really love and appreciate that item, and they can't receive it because you won't let it go. So it's almost like this circle to be aware of, that, trusting that the universe provides and that the universe will find the perfect home for something. And you just have to be willing to release it and allow that flow, that natural flow to happen.
Yeah. And I think we've all had that experience where we're trying to get something out of a cabinet. Maybe it's a kitchen cabinet or a place where we have all of our linens, and we're looking for something, and then we have to like pull everything out to find the other thing and then stick everything back. And it's this process that we do often, and it gets super frustrating. So how do you handle if you're in a really small space, somebody that's in a really small office or a really small apartment, and they don't have a lot of stuff, but they're having that experience where they're having to like pull everything out of the cabinet to get one object?
Yeah. I mean, it really comes down to like this full assessment of looking at what you have and whether it's truly serving you in this current moment. Like, not just like, I might need that later, but if there's a lot of things that we hold on to that might cost $5 or $10 or $15 to get when we need it. But we're holding it in our space just in case that moment we need it. And it's blocking the way for us to be able to enjoy the day-to-day stuff. So really getting to that point where you can assess, what do I need? What do I love? What do I have room for? And are there other ways I can come around being happy and creating ease in my life without holding on to all these things?
Yeah. I
Yeah.
heard somewhere too something similar to what you said, where if just get rid of it if it costs under $20 and you can just replace it easily. And then if you survey people where they've just given tons of stuff away, they might have one regret, but usually they don't have any regrets.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's very interesting that you'll not miss it. I actually tell this story all the time about when my kids were little. They have a ton of toys, a ton of stuff that comes with young kids. And they would have all of these toys out, which was my responsibility to clean, to put away, to manage when they were super little. And it was really difficult. So we started storing half of their stuff away and kind of circulating it out every month. So some stuff would go away, some stuff would come back out. They never missed what was away. And the day that they came back home from school or preschool or whatever, and the new stuff was out, it was like Christmas Day. Like, they were so excited, and it would really activate their play nature again. Like, they would be really excited again about it all. So it's funny,
Yeah.
like, we think we need it, but once it's out of sight, out of mind, we don't really even regret not having it at that moment.
It's same with that Montessori school concept where they have very few items out. And I think sometimes when we have too many choices, and they've done so many studies on this, it overwhelms our nervous system. So if you were to go and taste jam in a store or something, and there were three options, you would have an easy time discovering which ones you like out of the three. But if there's 10 options, people get really stumped and they get really stressed out and they can't figure it out.
Yep, exactly. It's so true.
Yeah.
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 More is not always better. And especially in
Yeah.
terms of feng shui and energy, because, if you were to think that there's an energetic cord between you and even just the things you can see in your immediate environment, it's taking up some of your energetic bandwidth. And so the more discerning you can be about what you surround yourself with, the more energy you'll have, and the higher you can keep your vibration, because you can be really picky about what is there, and accessing some of your time and energy.
Yeah. Yeah. And I want to bring in how we can call in what we're wishing to receive. I think one of the things that's so funny that I read, I was into feng shui years and years and years ago, and it's been very far removed from my life, but I have that general concepts. But one of them I remember was, if you're trying to call in love and you have a single bed, that's not going to work because you're not calling in that relationship. And they even said, if you have a king bed, that creates too much separation between couples. I
Yeah.
don't know if you've heard either of those, but what are some of those things if you want to call in love, or if you want to call in wealth, or if you want to call in better health? How do we do maybe those three?
Yeah, I mean, those are so good. Like, first of all, in terms of love, I see that all the time where somebody's like, I want to have a partner. But when you walk into their space, there's literally no room for the partner. And even more than that, what I'll often see is pictures of goddesses or statues of goddesses, like single powerful women, which is really the energy that's emanating throughout their space, not that, partnership, love, connection type of energy. So really, like, thinking about that, like, is your space reflecting that commitment to being connected to another person? Things in pairs, things that represent love, and togetherness, rather than that empowerment, single, I'm the independent kind of energy, is really powerful. So in terms of love, that's what I would say, like, definitely energize that thought of two people together in a relationship, and things that are in partnership everywhere around you is a great way to emphasize that. In terms of health, I see a lot of times there's a big distinction between caring for your health in a preactive way, where you have vitamins and supplements and exercise equipment surrounding you, versus being in a health crisis and you have medicines and medical documents and all kinds of records and stuff that are around you. If you're trying to go from that not feeling very well space to the thriving and healthy space, giving that the medicines and the doctors and the health issues less visibility, like, put your medicines in the cabinet, and diminish that, the energy that they have over you, and instead highlight big healthy bowls of fruit and options for keeping yourself healthy and exercising well. Like, that's just like kind of turning the energy in that direction.
Have a bowl of fruit instead of a bowl of candy out.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And even opening up your cabinets and, like, is everything that's in this cabinet really supporting the health goals that I have? Or is it actually in there sabotaging, being there as an anchor to sabotage my health goals when I want it? Yeah.
I mean, it makes sense if you're walking around the house and everywhere you look, there's medical supplies and medicine bottles. Then there's that constant reminder every single moment with your visual space. And if you can store it away, then you're not thinking about it as often.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, obviously you still need it. You still need to be able to access it, but it doesn't have to be the story that you see and that others see all day long. And your house really is telling a story. So you want a big part of Feng Shui is shifting the story that your house is telling, so that it reminds you to show up differently, and tells a different story to other people about who you are and what's important to you. Yeah.
And then how do we call in wealth?
Yeah, wealth and prosperity is another big thing. Like, looking around your space, getting clear on what wealth looks like and feels like to you. Like, when you walk into a space that feels rich and abundant, what does that look like? And are there incremental upgrades that you can make to your space that add in some of those elements? So, having beautiful artwork, or rich fabrics, or one really nice blanket that you highlight and place out, is really a great way to just shift the energy towards things that feel lush, that feel abundant, that feel rich, and shift that vibration of your space, so it's, over time, it's getting more and more feeling abundant and prosperous and rich.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And with holiday stuff, there's a lot of people that like to have tons of Thanksgiving and Christmas and Halloween, and they pull it out once a year for a month, and they're really into decorating all the seasons. And so how does that affect the energy of the home when that's being stored and when it kind of pulls out? What do you think about that?
Yeah, so I think that decorating for the holidays is a really great way to jumpstart the energy of your house. Like, it's like that. It's like pulling out the toy boxes and switching out the toys. It's kind of that energy of refreshing the house, shifting the energy for a little bit, really highlighting that coming together, a feeling. And so it's a good thing. But what I do see a lot of people doing is, like, they will bring out the decorations and put them out on top of everything that's already there. So the thing that can happen is that at first it feels really good, but then very quickly it feels overwhelming. And we all get that overwhelming feeling with the holidays. Like, there's more people, there's more music, there's more lights, there's more sound, there's more financial obligations, there's more gatherings, and that's all good. But there's also a tipping point where it gets to be too much.
Yeah.
And the decorations can actually trigger that tipping point a little bit earlier if you're not also mindful of what you're bringing out, and make space first and then bring out some items that really are creating the feeling and the vibe that you want. So you can have festive without it being really loud and triggering to your nervous system. You can make choices with the decor so that it's energizing and uplifting, but still calm and festive.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. I
Yeah.
think my home is pretty minimalist, and then when the holidays come, there's more stuff comes into the house and I enjoy it, but then the day after the holiday, I just like pack it all up. I just can't wait to get rid of
Yeah.
it and put it all away, and it makes me so happy to put it up, and it makes me even more happy to take it down
Absolutely.
just
Yep.
so I can like reclaim my space. So that totally makes sense.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then I think it's the same thing with when you go into a home and there's too much stuff, you don't know what to look at and you don't know where to focus. And so your energy gets scattered all over the place
Yes.
versus if somebody, versus you go into a hotel room and it's beautiful and it's neat and everything has its place, but it's not overwhelming.
Exactly. And really, that's why we are able to relax so much when we leave our homes, because not only do we have a much more minimal space, there aren't things interacting with us, but there's no attachments and stories to all of those things that are talking to us. Like a lot of the stuff in our home, there is an energetic attachment to, and there's a whole story behind it. And although we might not consciously be aware of the whatever that story is that's being whispered to us all the time, it's still impacting us. And so it gets loud. It gets loud even though it's very subtle.
Yeah. And so, with feng shui being an old practice and technology and phones and all of that being a new practice ish, how does digital clutter and technology weave into feng shui?
Yeah. So I would say, first of all, the electronics represent the fire element. We look at the balance of elements in a space. So we look at wood, water, earth, metal, and fire. And those elements work together in nature to create life and even to destroy life. So just depending on the way they are balanced. And so the electronics are the fire elements. So when you are bringing them into your space, you're bringing in a lot more fire elements than has ever been present before. And so that can be very activating and energizing. And so just being aware of that. So that process of really taking the time to shut things down and turn it off and close it and, even cover it up is really important to help quiet your space and calm your space down. And then in terms of the digital clutter that can build up, computers are really just an extension of your brain at this point, right? And it's storing all that stuff. And so if there is a bunch of clutter and it's in your files all in an exploded way or not organized, that's kind of symbolic of the files that are open in your head and how disorganized your thought process may be. And so it can be really powerful to go through your computers and your phones and just sort of declutter and organize things. And it will help also organize the thoughts in your head. So just being aware of that connection.
It makes sense because it's parallel to walking into your office and having your desk filled with like a million files.
Yep.
And then you're looking for something and you have to dig through all the files to find the one that you're looking for. And then they get lost really easily. And I guess it's parallel to a computer and all of its filing processes.
It is definitely. And if you think about it, even though you're only looking for that one file and you're trying to focus on that one, something that's in that one file for a project time period, all of those other files are still commanding your attention to a degree. And so they're really pulling your energy away from what you actually need to be focused on. So yeah, decluttering your desktop, decluttering your digital desktop, those are both really important things to help you call your energy back so that you can direct it where it needs to be and get the most out of your own personal energy.
Yeah. And I'd love to talk about the 5 elements because I know that there needs to be a balance between all of the elements in the home. So you don't want too much of one element or an overwhelming amount of one element. So can you talk about what the 5 elements are and what are some examples? Because some of them are not clear. I think I remember mirrors or water.
Yeah. Yep.
and like animals or fire. So can you just go through all the different elements and how we can look around our space and see if they're balanced?
Definitely, yeah. So we look at wood, and wood is obviously things that are made out of wood. It can be plants or trees. It can also be silk plants, it's linens, things that are made out of wood, books, things that are made out of wood, and patterns like leaf patterns or fruit patterns that might be on your pillows or decorative items.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how you represent, and it's even things that are striped. So like if you had a striped curtain, there's a little bit of wood element in that because it kind of brings that structure in. So that's the wood elements. Water is represented by water, things that are glass, mirrors, and things that have that flowy kind of wavy like shape to it. So, and even things that are black or dark blue, that's the kind of, if you think about the color of the deep ocean. So you can bring those colors, shapes into your space to help balance out and make sure that you have all of the things present. So you don't actually have to bring like a water feature into your home. You can bring one of those other symbols of water in or shapes of water in, and it helps as well.
Yeah, like flowy curtains versus striped curtains.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. The metal element is things that are made out of metal, things that might be painted gold or silver, things that are white or pastel colored, and things that are round in shape or circular. So you can bring in the metal elements by adding those items into the space.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. The earth element is things that are made of earth. So things like brick or terracotta or pottery. It can be dirt itself. Like if you have a plant that has dirt in it, that's bringing a little bit of earth element into it. It's the colors of like terracotta or beige or even light yellow. And it's square or rectangle shapes. So bringing that into your space is a way to add the energy of like earth is like a very grounding energy. So you can add in the earth elements
All those
to help.
earthy colors, right? Red
Yeah.
and orange and yellow and beige and
Yep. Yeah. And if you think about like the Southwest, like all of those colors and terracotta decor, that really brings in that element quite a bit. And then last is the fire element, and that's represented by fire, electronics, lighting, candles, things that are red, things that are orange, and things that are shaped like a triangle, almost like a flame. So you can bring that into your space. And fire, the personality of the fire element is all about like passion and, energizing yourself. It really is that, like, if you think about showing up and being seen, it's about like shining the light on you and like speaking and being seen. So, or speaking your passion.
And then plants are
Plants are the wood element.
wood.
Yeah. Yeah. And they have a little bit of the dirt or the earth element as well,
Yeah.
if they're living, and they would also have probably a little bit of earth element if they are in a pottery type of container. Yeah.
So it sounds like we can do a lot with paint and fabrics.
Yeah, absolutely. You can definitely shift the energy of the room automatically, like by painting the room a different color or by bringing in pieces that are of the different colors. And one really simple way to work with the elements is to just maybe like to look at like a centerpiece in the room and to create a centerpiece that has all 5 elements in it. So you're just making sure that all of the elements are represented. That's just a really easy, basic way to start off with balancing the elements.
Or if you have a small space like an office or a desk, you can bring that into that little tiny space.
Right. Yep. Yep.
Yeah,
Yeah.
interesting. And I know entryways are really important in feng shui because that's the invitation into our home. And so we want to make that path an easy navigation. We don't want to have to go around barriers to get to the front door. When we moved into our home, you had to go up the driveway and up this like little tiny like walkway and then into our house or step through the grass, and everyone was coming through the grass and then stepping through the landscape. And so we created steps and we widened our patio and we changed the steps to the door to make that more of an invitation.
Yes. Yep.
And so what are some things that people can do with that entryway and with paint and with space and flowers and things like that?
Yeah. So energy flows where attention goes. So, and we want energy to come to our homes because once it's there, it will energize our life, our business, our relationships, our health. So we really want to be able to call energy in our direction.
Hmm.
And so thinking of your front door as that beacon, like, first of all, can your address easily be found? Is your address clearly marked?
Hmm.
Is it easy to get from the street or the driveway to your front door? Is it
Hmm.
obvious which door to go to? A lot of people have multiple front
Yes.
doors or a garage. Like, where is the front door? Which one do I use?
Yes.
Making that painfully clear is good because it not just helps people get where they need to go, but it helps the energy know where to go. And we
Hmm.
really want to call it into that, especially to that main architectural front door of the house. Even if that's not the door that you use on a regular basis, calling the energy there will help bring more energy to you.
Hmm.
And things like good lighting, a doorbell that works, flowers at the front door, a welcome mat or a welcome wreath. All of that is really important to just make that transition easy, but also uplifting. So it's almost like encouraging the energy that comes into your home to be high vibe.
Yeah. Yeah. When you said broken doorbell, it made me think that anything in our house that's broken has created stagnant energy.
Yes. Yeah. Yep. And it creates this energy of settling for things the way they are.
Mm.
So, over time, incrementally fixing or upgrading things that are not working well is a way to lift the energy up and create more energy and more ease in your day-to-day life.
Hmm. What is one of the success stories that you have of a biggest transformation of someone where they've utilized feng shui in their home and then it's shifted their life in some way?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I have this great client that came to me about a year and a half ago. They were going through a divorce, so big transition in their life. And in that transition, they were not only divorcing, but they were separating a business. So it was a
Mhm.
big transition where they were changing, from this partnership to being single again. They were moving into a new location. They were starting their business up again. And we feng shuied the space that they had moved into, which was a temporary space. We knew they weren't going to be there for very long. And within a year, their business is thriving. They are in a new relationship and married
Mhm.
and have bought a home. So it's like when you really put the energy into making sure that your home is supporting the life that you want to create, amazing things can happen. Like
Mhm.
it's really so fun to see what the universe will put in your direction when you ask
Yeah.
for it.
It's
Yeah,
intentional living, so it's directing energy in the intention or the direction that you want it to go. So if you're wanting to bring in health, then you're creating an intention around that. If you're wanting to bring in love, then you're creating an intention. And I always feel like energy follows intention.
absolutely. Absolutely. And if you think about, I started out many years ago making a vision board for myself at the beginning of the year with things that I wanted to call in for the coming year. But
Mhm.
as I began to practice feng shui, I realized that my home is a three-dimensional vision board. Like
Oh,
if
yeah.
it can help to call energy to the parts of my life where I need it and to remind me what I'm calling in and how to show up on a day-to-day basis, it becomes like a huge magnet that helps me amplify what I'm asking for and magnetize it back to me so much faster.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you have any last tips for people? That's something really big that we haven't covered already?
Let's see. I would say if you were going to play with feng shui, the thing that I would start with is just um, number one, your front door. Like give it a good, like even if you just go out and sweep the front walkway
Clean the door.
and like clean the door, like and freshen up the flowers or the plantings that are out front, it
Mhm.
will be really a big thing. And the other thing that I would say is to really look at what you have that you're keeping around you and do some decluttering, make some space. Like even if you get rid of three things, six things, nine things, it will really start to allow the energy to flow in a different way. And by telling the universe, I don't want this anymore, and creating space, it opens up a new flow for things to come to you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Well, thank you.
Thank you.
I would love for you to share how people can reach you. Tell us about your book. Tell us about any other offerings that you might have. I feel like I could honestly, I'm so tempted to pick your brain for many, many hours on this because I love
Yep.
this topic and it's so vast and so deep. And there's so much more that we haven't even touched on.
Absolutely. I could talk about this all day, so that would be a great conversation. We could keep going. But I'm available. You can find me at kerrimillerfengshui.com. There's information there about how to work with me and my book. I work with people both on site and virtually. And so no matter where you are in the world, we can look at your home and address it and make some beneficial changes that will shift so that it is working better, working with you to create the life that you want. So my book is available there. You can also find me on social media, Instagram and Facebook. My handle is at Kerri Miller Feng Shui.
Yeah.
And I often do free workshops, free virtual workshops. So you'll see those on my website and also on the social media accounts. And it's just a great way to learn about a specific topic about Feng Shui and how to implement it in your life.
I want to check out those workshops for sure.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Well, thank you.
Great.
Thank you. I really enjoyed this podcast. I really enjoyed our conversation, and I thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you so much for having me. It was a great conversation.
Thank you for listening to the Connected Community Podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, please like, share, and subscribe. I can be found at www.nikkiyoga.com, NICKYYYOGA.com. Until I see you again next week, I hope you have a beautiful day.